Well, one of the sayings I use a lot now is everyone in your business is either an anchor or a propeller.
Yes.
And sometimes you can be an anchor one day and a propeller the next, but if
Yeah.
you're an anchor too often, you'll hold the business back.
And I'd been working really hard, and rather selfishly, I suppose, in lots of ways, and not putting as much into the family as you would. She said, I think you've got to know, I think they're thieving from you. I said, who's thieving from me? Some of the people, some of the operatives in the warehouse. Really? Yes, and it's aisles so-and-so, and so-and-so, and so-and-so, and so-and-so. And if you check the cameras, you'll see it. How long's that been going on? Well, it's been going on for a few months, and I don't like it.
Welcome to part 2 of Success is a system with Jim McCarthy, Paperboys Partnerships in Poundland.
So when I was then, obviously we'd like tripled the profit in a couple of years, effectively.
Brilliant.
And we got the template for convenience. So the guy that took over as sales director, he went, and I was invited back to be Group MD.
Yeah.
Which would never
back to Brownhill, so you're coming back north
which
again.
would never have happened.
If you'd become sales director in the
Exactly.
first place. Yeah.
So again, a bit of luck, and a great team down in the south, fantastic team. Went back, they had decentralised to cut costs, and I put some of those functions back centrally. But we started to go for convenience stores and whatnot. That was going really well, and we'd gone from basically being the least profitable multiple newsagent group, because you've got NSS, you've got Martins, you've got all those sort of people.
Yeah, and it was Martins. I was at them.
Powerboys. Yes, all of those. And we were going, and we were up towards the top. Now the Birmingham Post and Mail, which was owned by the
But not only towards the top in terms of scale or profitability, but starting to be seen as a best in class individually as well.
I'd like to say.
I remember us going to stores to have a look at what they're doing there.
Isn't that lovely? I mean, that's smashing. And so, that's lovely. So, Birmingham Post and Mail thought there was going to be a change of government, I think. And so they decided that they would enter into some other agreements with companies abroad, and to enable them to do that, to buy shares in these other companies abroad, and presumably, this is my words, not theirs, but presumably to reduce the risk to the family wealth, they decided to sell some of their UK assets, of which we were one. And at that point, I learned quite a bit at this point, because I'm still fairly narrow, news and convenience. My boss, John Hayward, who was, as I said to you earlier, Mike, blade straight, wonderful man, Bachelor of Commerce, I think he was, qualified chartered accountant, and so on. So he got lots of things, and a Bachelor of Economics, I think. He said to me, "Do you fancy buying it?" I mean, this is the paper kid.
You'd never thought of being an owner or an equity?
No, absolutely not. And it frightened me to death. And I said, "Well, I don't know. What do you think?" He said, "Well, if you're keen, I'll help you," because he got lots of experience of that. So we went to see Electric Andover, as it was in those days, in London. Michael Stoddart was the chap there, who was the chairman also of Next. And we got some agreement that we would bid this and, no more, but that was what we were going to do. We could have gone more. Probably should have done in hindsight, but anyway. What happened was they said no to my bid, or my team's bid, if you like. They wanted more. And I sat there, ever so clever, thinking, they're going to come back to us because they won't get any more.
Right.
And I'd miscalculated because George Davis of Next PLC decided that he wanted a contra to the high street.
Right.
So he got all his profits in the high street, he wanted some neighbourhood stuff, and he was a bit of a visionary and so on and so forth. So they bid for the business 2 or 3 million more than we were,
Right.
on the basis that we stayed. And I said, well, if we stay as a team...
You want some equity?
Well, I didn't know. I should have done really. But I said, it's only on the basis that you're going to invest in the business, because we've been starved of capital. We should be much further on.
Yeah.
And I can now understand why they starved us of capital, because they were going to sell us. I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
And they were leaving upside and all sorts of stuff, de-risking it for them. Yeah, not for me, but for them.
Yeah.
So he said, yes, he said, we won't buy it unless the team stays. And if we do buy it, we will accelerate the growth. And that's what happened.
Brilliant.
And within a year, we bought Predis for about 20 million, I think. Got pretty much the whole 20 million back in next to no time by doing various things, like selling some of the stores off to Smiths and Menzies. And there was a Libyan group that took some of the poorer small stores off us. So we ended up with about 100 stores for nothing, which is fabulous. And next were great bedfellows. They were super. George was mercurial, and I had huge respect for him because he was very good to me.
Yeah.
And he was a bit of a design genius. He was talking TV dinners before anybody.
Right.
You know, and he when he went into a convenience store with me, he'd say, "Oh, I can see this, I can see that." And I'm thinking, wow, you know, this is fabulous. And he was connected. So he could find manufacturers to make chilled dinners and stuff, you know, because he was also, I think, quite well connected to M&S. So there was all sorts of things going on. And this was a new world for me. I got very excited by it all. And we did really, really well. But unfortunately, Next didn't. And they expanded so quickly and they spent so much money, they were within...
They started to suck the cash out of...
They were almost bust. And George was dismissed. And David Jones took over. And David decided that some of the assets had to go quickly to save Next, which was exactly right. And we were one of those, which is why T&S stores were able to come in and make a bid for us. Now, that was really interesting because Kevin Threlfall, the T in T&S, were making about 3 million. I think we were making just under 8 at the time. So that's a huge difference.
Reversing
so the little business is taking the big business. And to get a rights issue away of that size and scale, unbelievable. And the deal was done on the streets of London between David Jones and Kevin Threlfall, while David Jones was showing a little old lady the way somewhere on an A to Z.
Brilliant.
Because she'd asked him, do you know
And those are the stories that I absolutely love.
So anyway, Kevin, bless him, and I've always thought of an entrepreneur. You're
I remember he had Aston Martin and also he's a very impressive
but
man.
You're like an entrepreneur, you see, because you've put your risk, your business, you've created business. It's your risk, it's your energy, it's, you know, it's...
And you have got to have an energy for loss as well as an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
It's like this roller coaster
Well, I don't
ride.
know how often they relaunched Magnum, but Magnum, I think, was launched about 3 times before the market was ready for it. And then bang, the biggest thing ever, you know. So, but I've always been I've admired enormously people that have put their homes, their happiness and everything at risk. So when Kevin founded Super Sigs and T&S, it was his risk.
Yeah.
You know, so
had huge money in terms of cash flow.
Oh, absolutely. Now he got a little bit of a history because he was one of the founders of Low Cost Supermarkets, which was sold on. But you know, the Super Sigs business, what a model! This is a 10% gross margin. 10% gross margin. You've got the premises to pay for, the rent. You can imagine high streets. Okay, 600 to 800 square feet, small, massive volumes going through, but 90% of it's tobacco.
And what would be the net on that, or the EBITDA, do you think, just as a guess percentage of sales?
It would be very little.
It would be like
very
low
little.
single digit, wouldn't it? Like 1 or 2 or something.
Well, your overall gross margin's 10. Your wages, we used to budget wages at 2.6%. Then you've got shrink. Then you've got insurance, electric, all that stuff. Rent, the whole lot. So by the time you finished, you've got very little.
But on huge turnover because of the tobacco.
Wow. This is why the convenience model that he was acquiring,
the melded margin became
which was capital heavy, because Super Sigs created so much cash. So everything was sold weeks before you paid for it. So tobacco, we used to have 2 companies buying tobacco, and we would only buy on the one that had the maximum credit. Yeah.
But you could almost make your year's profit out of the budget if you played it
right.
right.
I was about to say, there was 2 to 3 million of duty budget profit, which was really what kept it all.
Same with Palm and Harvey. Their whole profit was the duty each year on budget.
And it's not like, you know, we used to go to Barclays, and who were our bank, and we'd say to Barclays, oh, you know, we want to borrow 80 million quid for, you know, tobacco. Oh, really? How many weeks is that? 16 weeks stock. Oh, yeah. And within 7 days, all done.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that today. But then, because a block of Benson and Hedges cigarettes is like a gold bar. It's not like a dress. There's no risk of the fashion failing, and it being worth threepence as opposed to 300 quid.
And the turn is quick as well. Yeah.
And if you want to really get rid of it quick, just reduce the price. A couple of coppers. And people will buy 400, and so it was a fantastic business. We used to do on Walker's Crisps. I mean, you wouldn't believe how many articulated lorries were delivering crisps into the centre for delivery out. We were unbelievable.
Literally cross-docking, in and out.
So this is something that Kevin Threlfall created and we became part of.
Yeah.
So they needed to make an acquisition, really. They were a public company at the time. They'd gone from private to AIM and then to full listing. But they were running out of track as well. So they needed to acquire. So with us, and that was a bit of a journey, because I think Kevin thought the value was in the newsagents.
Yeah.
So he and I didn't get on
because you'd seen the light of convenience. And
I was saying, no. Sell the newsagent stores whilst they're at top of the value. We're at the top of the curve.
And already, I mean, for us that were out looking at the industry all the time, which we were all doing at the time, that's as ACS, that was one of our key things. You were seeing tobacco's still important, but it's in long-term decline.
Yeah.
Sweets are starting to become demonised because of dental and stuff. So they're important, but people are going to probably measure their consumption a bit differently.
Well,
and things like that, do you think?
Well, Mike, I think you might probably be ahead of me there, I think.
Right.
But because confectionery in Super Six was fantastic. And the genius of Kevin, and Kevin was genius. I mean, he and I did fall out.
It's all about location, the impulsivity, and so...
He and I fell out, but we came back together.
Right, okay.
And we came back stronger. And we then agreed the strategy was to grow the convenience, because that's where the future was. And so that we were fully aligned, and as a team, and I loved him.
And then you become unstoppable once you stop pulling against each other.
Tremendous. But, he came into the office one day and he said, and I'm chief executive by then. I did take a step back when TNS took us over. I became retail director. Because I wanted to look after my people, and I knew I could do that as retail director. He was, in those days, you could get away with it, chief executive and chairman. So he had ultimate power.
Yeah.
But over time, I became the chief exec, which was fabulous. I think it was 13 years to do that.
Yeah.
But he came in one day, and he was like a kid. He said, Jim, I've just seen a massive queue outside this shop in Wolverhampton. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. I said, what kind of shop was it? He said, well, it's a confectionery shop.
All right.
And I said, what are they queuing for? He said, well, they're buying confectionery. I said, yeah, but what's different? He said, well, that's where the excitement is. He said, why don't you come and have a look? Come and have a look. And what they'd done...
Pick and mix or something, or was it?
Well, Super Sigs was on like Woolworth pick and mix. They were fabulous at it. But this was count line pick and mix.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
So we used to have a 5-pack of Mars bars, a 5-pack of Snickers, a 5-pack of Flake, a 5-pack of Whisper. This wasn't. This was you could have one of each, singly, and do 5 for a...
And he'd just created that himself?
They had this little shop.
This retailer, sorry, yeah.
He'd just done it. But it was across a whole massive range of things. And there was always a queue outside. So he said, what do you reckon? I said, well, it's genius. It's genius. So... One of the ladies who led Super Sigs, Lorna Kirby, I got hold of Lorna. I said, Lorna, there's this shop in Wolverhampton. You've got to go and look at it. I said, I want you to go and look at it from our perspective. That's one shop. How can we get this in 170, 180 Super Sigs and really do it professionally and properly? Because they're playing at it. Anyway, off she goes. And bless her, she came back. Very low capital. She did it in, I think, about 3 months. And our confection, which was millions of pounds a year, millions and millions and millions, went up 20% in the first year, and it wasn't a full year.
At what would it have been then? 20? High 20 margin?
Yeah. Well, chocolate would have been 24, 25. Sugar would have been 30 to 35. Yeah. So the blended average might be 27.
Yeah.
And then you've got your overriders and annual, the stuff. So that suddenly... And then we could put them into dumplings.
But I think what's important there as well is you'd obviously by that point understood the power of multiplication. So you see that one shop and you think we can do this across all the stores.
Yeah.
And again, I keep often one of the hardest things to get an SME, because people often don't realise the numbers. There's 5.9 million businesses in the UK. 5.3 million of them have less than 10 employees.
Wow.
I mean, literally 90% of the UK's businesses, less than 10 employees.
Yeah.
Partly because they haven't learned how to manage more than 10 people. They're ducking and diving. Partly because they're scared of investing in multiplying what they know to be what works.
Yes.
So I'll keep it as small as I can handle, rather than saying I'm going to get the people to help me handle more. And yet it works. It works for them. It delivers a living.
Absolutely.
But why wouldn't, when you see an idea and you know that idea works and it's of the moment, because it might not be in 2 years, do it while it is, and multiply.
You're absolutely right.
The kind of confidence and courage
Yes.
to invest knowing that it's working.
Yeah. But you've also got to know where you're going, haven't you? So the strategic direction. So you've got to leave something in for the next man.
Yeah.
So if you're going to sell the business and crystallise your...
Never sell at the top, sell on the rise.
Always sell. Leave something for the next bloke, you know? So we had a free run at the confectionery, as one example, for about 2 years before the manufacturer's sales force was saying, well, because they've got bosses to go and report to, and the boss would say, well, hold on a minute, Jack or Mary or whatever, you've had, that year you did 20%, and last year you did 15%, it's going the wrong way.
Yeah.
Well, if I now start offering this multi stuff to other, I can...
So the manufacturers thought it's not just a retail play, it's a manufacturing play.
Absolutely. So then you've got a whole change in the industry.
And the wholesalers are getting in on it as well.
So we have to move on by trying to do it better and to do other products and stuff. So when I went to Poundland, one of the first things I did was to do the multi-buy, because they only ever did multi-packs, Poundland. We did the multi-buy and an end gondola. Whoa. And then we did the little tins, Pepsi
well, and what a lot of
tins
people might not realise is you took Poundland from 300 million to 1.2, 1.3 billion.
No, it was 150 million to 1.2, I think. Something like that.
Nothing speaks louder than actual numbers, if you like. The numbers never lie. A lot of people will claim credit for stuff, but they haven't really grown the business. It all translates at the end of the day. Did you grow it? You did grow it. Every business you've been involved in. And the scale is incredible. To the point that, and we're sort of getting up to date almost to when we met then, that's why Tesco's didn't just want to buy One Stop or T&S, they wanted to buy Jim McCarthy as well. And you were taken into main board of Tesco's as part of that deal, weren't you?
Well, not really, no.
Well, you were there, though, for a while, before you went to Sainsbury's.
Yes, only for a little while.
Oh, okay.
Only for a little while.
I thought that was maybe a clash of character when you got in. But
well, I'll tell you, because it's quite... I think it's quite interesting. So we've always told the city, as T&S, that at some point... We've told the city that we're going to grow convenience.
Yeah.
And we're going to be the biggest.
And you already were heading that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
We said that the exit for these investors would be when one of the supermarket groups said, whoa, we need to buy them.
Yeah.
And the investment community was, don't think that's going to happen. These are big box operators. The economics work for big box. They don't work for small. Tesco have played a little bit with a few garages and stuff, and they can't cope with the refrigeration, and they've got units outside. It's not going to happen. And we said, oh, it will. It's going to come because the consumer wants it to happen.
And convenience was becoming more important than big shop shopping all the time.
Absolutely. And time was, you used to say it all the time, didn't you? Time poor, money rich.
Yeah,
and at that time, so you'd pay for
and
convenience.
even people who don't think they're money rich are still time poor.
Absolutely.
And will even if you go to the poorest council estates, and I was born in them, people will still pay for the time convenience.
Absolutely.
And I used to use, or still use, a Coke example, Coca-Cola. Let's say, I don't know the price exactly, but let's say you could buy 80 pence in a discounter, £1 in a supermarket. It'll be £1.20 in a convenience store. It'll be £1.50 in a petrol station. It'll be £2.50 at Glastonbury or somewhere like that.
Yep.
People don't leave Glastonbury and drive 2 miles to get it at 80p. There's a cost of convenience that people are willing to pay.
Indeed.
If you can give them the service, the speed, and the speed is the key part of it.
Absolutely.
Let's move on then. So we met. You're at One Stop T&S. You've sold to Tesco's. That must have been an incredible negotiation to be involved in.
Yes.
Part of your life you'll never get back because it takes forever as well.
Yeah. We got to the stage in One Stop, which was the part of TNS really, where we were doing really well. We were making lots and lots of profit, but the growth, we were running out of track of acquisitions. And if you're a public company, really speaking, the guideline is 10% plus each year, and the investors are happy, and paying your dividends, all that stuff. But we were running out of track, and one of the weaknesses we had was chilled food.
Yeah.
So we could do, frozen, not as well as Iceland or something like that, but we could do a bit
Enough
of
for
frozen.
convenience. Yeah.
But the chilled stuff, we're getting through people like Booker and one or two other ones, was never. In fact, the distance between our quality and Tesco and M&S and Sainsbury's was widening, if anything.
Yeah, yeah.
So we sort of said, well, and Kevin, bless him.
Well, and getting the small store retailers to be willing to throw it away
Yeah.
just before it's
Absolutely.
past its best, rather than a day after or 2 days after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're saying, well, what's the future really? So we've been telling the investment community that one day,
They're going to buy us. Yeah.
and we're saying, well, we're running out of track. There aren't these sort of 100 here, 200 there stores to buy. We know that chilled, the distance between what we can put in front of the consumer and what these other bigger operators can with a chilled supply chain, proper chilled supply chain, is get so really. So I think as we spoke, as we made it known that, to quote Copperfield, wasn't it? Barkis is willing, I think was the quote. Yeah, David Copperfield, there was a quote, Barkis is willing. It was about marriage.
Right.
So we sort of did this Barkis is willing thing. But it coincided, as I understand it, with Tesco looking very hard at convenience. And they'd had a lot of people working solely on the future of convenience retailing.
So what do they say about luck? It's where opportunity and preparedness meet.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so it was like a meeting of, it was a great meeting. So I think Tesco, who are still the major supermarket group, with I think 27 or 28% of the market, huge percentage, they were looking ever more go forward. And they have made mistakes, like we all do. They learn pretty fast, and they pull out very quickly, like America, and so on and so forth. But convenience, they were absolutely, let's do this, and let's have a go at One Stop. Not because every store suited them, but about half of the stores would transfer to the express format.
And they knew that they could get good money for the others anyway if they needed.
Yeah, but in fairness, what they did, they maintained the One Stop estate.
As One Stop. So,
Yeah, and there's an element of franchise in there as well, I think.
Yeah,
and they make really good money. So for Tesco, it's been a very good purchase. For our investors, it was a very good return on their original investment. And for Kevin and people like, well, Kevin particularly, because he was, it was his
major shareholder.
Yeah, major shareholder. Me far less so, but I made some money as well. And at that point, I decided that I would retire.
Oh, really? I didn't know this.
Yeah. Well,
People
Rosie,
like you and me can't retire. Though,
well, it was difficult, but Rosie, said, look, I think I was 47 at the time, maybe 48. 2003, this is. So I think I was 47. And she says, we don't have a mortgage. We've got the 2 kids, they were teenagers, and I'd been working really hard and rather selfishly, I suppose, in lots of ways, and not putting as much into the family as you would. So okay. So I used to walk 10 miles every day and do things with Rosie and stuff. And after a while, she said, "Why don't you go and find a job?" So I said, "What do you mean?
You're driving me crazy."
Yeah, absolutely, because the poor girl she'd lost her life because she was then looking after me all the time. If you know what I mean. So
I think that happens more than you know. The more people I speak to who sell a business, retire, so their families love having them home.
Yes,
just not that much.
Absolutely. And so I thought, oh, thank you. I mean, that was.
You were ready by then.
I never
anyway.
really said this to her, but I thought, oh, thank you. And I started to apply to go through search companies and stuff.
Yeah.
And I had, this is where you get a little bit of disappointment in life, of course. So I got through to the final of about 5, and I didn't get any of them. And actually, when I look back, they were absolutely right. You know, I probably wasn't the best qualified for that particular.
It's a fit as well,
yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
for that particular role. And then a friend rang me up and said, "Why don't you approach Sainsbury's? Because they need somebody for convenience."
So that wasn't a job. You
There was no
you
job.
approached
No.
them. Okay.
Which is where you find out who your friends are, when you've left business, and your phone doesn't go as often, does it?
Yeah,
You know?
I remember Jeff Harris saying the same.
Oh,
that,
absolutely.
You know, you ring people, or you ring people. Do you want a game of golf? I'm busy, mate.
Yeah. So anyway, this is a really great guy, and he told me, he said, "Look, Sainsbury's needs somebody. Why don't you?" Why? I said, "Well, I said Justin King's going into Sainsbury's. You know, so there's going to be a new CEO in there." He said, "Well, I'll ring." So anyway, I did.
And of course, they're being hurt by Tesco's massive growth in convenience at the time. And,
So, and they'd started locals and stuff, but they weren't doing it very well. And Justin, quite rightly, was going to concentrate on the supermarkets, which is the main area, the most important
bread and butter,
area.
yeah.
And the locals, the convenience stores, which were losing a lot of money, he said, "Look," he interviewed me, to cut a long story short, and I got the job. And he said, "Look, you just go and fix it. And if you can't, I've got a tough choice to make."
Brilliant to be given that free rein.
Yeah.
Because he knew that you knew millions more than he did about small format.
Well, he needed to spend his energy creating the big team, for supermarkets.
Yeah, of course.
And getting that right.
And having the separation, because it is two quite different businesses,
absolutely.
is important.
And he, again, Justin is a very, very, very intelligent guy.
Yeah.
And mercurial. He's a great thinker and stuff. And I loved working for him. He was great.
Hope you're enjoying Success is a System. Every Tuesday we launch it on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Drop us a note and tell us who you would like to see or hear on Success is a System, or what subjects you'd like us to cover to help you and your business. Success is a System. Like, subscribe, and make sure you get it every Tuesday for great lessons and systems that have made people wealthy, healthy and successful.
Terrific. And he was very good to me. He allowed me to do an awful lot of stuff, and it worked.
Yeah.
Because we were able to expand the number of stores. We refurbed the stores. We've got a bit of capital to
And what were the number changes during your time at Sainsbury's Local in terms of number of stores, turnover, that sort of?
That's a good question. I think we were less than 100 when I went, and we were way over. Maybe I was only.
Because you bought Bell's, Jackson's.
2.25. Well, Bell's had already been bought.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that had already been bought. But we bought Jackson's.
Because that was 104 stores, was it? Or
It was
like that?
it was about 110, I think.
Okay.
Like that, maybe a bit more, 114. But I think it was about 260, 270.
Right.
So it was going, quite quick. But we had all sorts of things to address. So, for example, the communication system in a local would be exactly the same, telecoms and stuff, as in a supermarket. So massively over-engineered.
Yeah.
So there were huge opportunities to cut costs and provide what
And
was...
also speed it up, because it would have been too laboursome.
We brought gondola heights down so you could see across.
Yeah.
So people could say, oh,
Yeah.
I can say, oh, that one, and a bit more secure as well.
Yeah, security.
We rationalised. This was fantastic, and you'll know this, Mike. I mean, crikey, I've heard you talk about it, but we rationalised the range, the assortment, massively, because it was so overly done.
Less is more.
And people were writing in, emails and letters and stuff saying, "Wow, didn't realise
They
you've got
think
so
you've
much."
increased it because they can now see what you have got.
Didn't realise you've got so much range. It's fantastic, So our like for likes were double digit all the way through. I mean, it was just
Brilliant.
fabulous. And then bless, Rosie got she wasn't very well and got very poorly. So I'd only promised 3 years to Sainsbury's, and I was about half a year short of that. And in the background, I'm not the bravest man in the world, but in the background, I'd been approached by Poundland several times to become their chief executive. I wasn't interested because Sainsbury's, to me, I loved it. It's just great. And working with a brand and seeing how that worked, compared to, let's say, T&S, which wasn't really a brand, was for me was wonderful. So I didn't like the big business, the big. All the conversations,
The dinosaur
and the
ferry
and,
style speed.
Oh yeah, exactly. I didn't like all that, but some of the people were fantastic, really good, and the brand was marvellous, and the loyalty. You just had to put the stuff on the shelf. Customers buy it in Sainsbury's because they believe in Sainsbury's. Wonderful brand.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I've been approached, and I'm thinking, well, for the first time in my life, I really ought to put my wife first. I didn't knowingly not do that in the past, but when I was thinking about it, I thought, well, I've never been there. We've got the two boys. Rosie's kept everything together, fantastic. She's been tremendous support. And now's the time to put something back. So, and if I join Poundland, that's only at Wolverhampton. I can be there in an hour and 10, where, I was getting up at 5 in the morning and getting home at 10 o'clock at night, Monday to Friday. So that's what happened. And I got into Poundland, where Colin Smith, the former Safeway chief executive and CFO, another wonderful man. Again, very lucky Jim, great chairman, great chairman. He was the guy that was sorting it all out with me. Went in there, bit of a basket case. Advent were the VC, the private equity people who owned it. I got a bit of a deal on going in. Had to put some money in, and I was able to bring Nick Hately, because one person is never enough. You need a bit like Clough and Taylor at Nottingham Forest. Sometimes you need. Well, you do always need two, I think. And Nick was brilliant. He was a great CFO.
Double X. Yeah, me and Tom always.
Yes,
spurred each other.
Exactly. And Nick was powerful and enough to be able to take me on and argue things with me.
Yeah.
And if he was right, which 9 times out of 10 he was, I'd do what. Yeah, okay then, we'll do that. And occasionally I said, no, this is what we're going to do. And he'd back me, and he'd never ever let anybody know that he didn't actually fully support. You'd never have known. I think the phrase is, you wouldn't have got a cigarette paper between the two of us.
Fantastic. And that's what it needs to be.
Yes.
Like when you said with Kevin,
Absolutely.
you were pulling apart. Once you started working together,
absolutely,
brakes are off, we're motoring. I
had a lot of fun with Kevin. He was the funniest man in business, but absolutely driven.
Well, one of the sayings I use a lot now is, everyone in your business is either an anchor or a propeller.
Yes.
And sometimes you can be an anchor one day and a propeller the next. But if you're an anchor too often, you'll hold the business back. But if you can turn everyone or recruit everyone to being propellers, you become unstoppable. And the growth happens at such an incredible speed when you get everyone propelling.
Absolutely. And you've got to get life's about balance, isn't it? We are what we eat and drink and how we surround ourselves with things. And business is about balance, giving people your time. The most valuable thing you can give anybody is your time. But if you're in a big business, you can't give everybody the same because you haven't got enough time. It's finite, isn't it? So you've got to make those judgments. That means working longer sometimes, but listening. I mean, one of the great stories I think it's a great story because it's human. It's really lovely. I always had an open door, and I would talk to everybody as though they were, the chairman.
Fantastic.
Pay everybody the same respect, I think. I don't.
No, you did. You always were approachable by.
I think so. But we had some cleaners at Poundland, and they were fantastic. Lovely ladies, salt of the earth ladies, and I used to say, hello, hello, every night, and they'd come in and how's it going, Jim? Oh yeah, it's great. Anyway, there's one night she said, what with the one day. Can I have a word? And I said, yeah, of course you can. And you might need to change the actually. One of the cleaners came.
I'm sure she won't mind being named.
One of the cleaners came and said, can I have a word, Jim? Yeah, come in. Just close the door. She said, I think you've got to know. I think they're thieving from you. I said, who's thieving from me? Some of the operatives in the warehouse. Really? Yes, and it's aisles so-and-so, 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 so-and-so. And if you check the cameras, you'll see it. How long has that been going on? Well, it's been going on for a few months, and I don't like it. You're fair with everybody. The business is fair with everybody. Why should they be thieving and putting everybody's jobs at risk?
Brilliant.
Now, when we dealt with it, we obviously had the disciplinary and all the rest of it. Theft is theft, you're out. And maybe even police. I think on that occasion it was just out. But anyway, I thought, why did she come and share that with me? Because it would have been way easier to have ignored it. And I concluded in the finish that the reason she did was because she felt more loyalty to the business because she was always treated as an equal.
Yeah.
You know? So she had the confidence to come and see me.
Because you'd have been, I mean, I don't like to make it all about money, but you'd have been on like a 7-figure income. You'd have been like, all these things. So for anybody, let alone a cleaner, to come and say, "Can I have a minute?" and to share that story would have been like a big thing. It's quite scary. In fact, in some ways, maybe she was more likely to do it than someone who's the next tier down because, I don't know.
Yeah,
you know.
in fact, just to be clear, probably wasn't 7-figure income at that point because it's private equity. And private equity, of course, tend to keep your salary as low as they can, and all the upside in the exit.
Right.
Now, I can tell you, I didn't go to Poundland on less than I was at Sainsbury's. That was part because they asked me, so that was quite important. But I would be misleading you if I said it was 7 figures at the time.
But still scary when you talk about the number of tiers.
It was. And the people there were fantastic. When I got into Poundland, I was told pretty much that I'd have to make wholesale changes, and I didn't have to. And I learnt another thing. Sometimes if you give enough oxygen to people and enough clarity and support, they'll do it. And I had a rule, Mike. If somebody felt strong enough, if they came to me with an idea and said, that's my idea, tell me about it. I don't think so. And off they go, disappointed. If they came back and said, Jim, can I remember that idea I told you about? Yeah. Well, I still think,
Make them fight for a little bit.
If they came back a third time, I'd say, yeah, okay, we'll do it. And that was my unwritten
Even
rule.
if you weren't sure?
Because the momentum and the passion that they had for that, even if it was flawed, they would make it work.
And yet, how many people in business give up on the first failure or what?
Well, if you're going to fail fast. That's exactly because it's less costly, isn't it? But if somebody's so passionate, and this is that they keep, they're probably right. Let them have a go, and don't if they fail, they fail. It's part of learning,
So, and today you're 67 now, or?
Unfortunately, yes.
So 67, but
I'm very grateful.
Still got loads of energy. People won't be able to see, but you had a hip hop just a few months ago, and yet you were telling me today you'd already fallen off your bike. Who would go on their bike within a couple of months of having a hip hop? But you still got loads of energy. Still working on many boards. Still loving it.
Well, I'm down to one board at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm chair of Ultimate Products, who own the Salter brand and Beldray.
You do that for 7?
We floated in 2017.
Right.
I think it's March 17. So since 7 years.
Yeah.
Great business, great management, great brands, and I enjoy it. I mean, I think if you're chairing a business, very different to becoming a chief executive. Isn't it? Well, you know that, Mike. If you've got a really good executive director team, it's when you're chairing, it's not hard because they're coming to you and saying, "This is what we're going to do."
Yeah.
What do you think?
But what a great thing that you're still doing that, because so many people have got this kind of, I'm going to retire at 60, I'm going to retire at 65, when so much experience, so much knowledge, so much wisdom, made so many mistakes to know, what causes those mistakes. And that's the time when I think people should be giving back. It's a bit like grandparents often were the mentors of grandchildren without realising they were a mentor. But the problem is there's not enough interaction often in families now, so that same mentorship isn't happening, which is why I think this kind of podcast is important. But I'm going to wrap it up in about 5 minutes now, if we can.
Yeah.
And I want to do it, if that's okay with you, in some quick fire questions. So answer in 10 seconds to 30 seconds, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What was the biggest lesson you learned from the one-stop T&S business?
Innovate at pace.
Sainsbury's?
The brand is everything.
Tesco's?
Stick to strategy.
Brilliant. And tell me your biggest philosophy around people.
Invest your time in people, and the payback is enormous. Treat everybody. If I haven't done this in the past, I think it's unlikely that I've not done it. Treat everybody with the respect that they deserve. You know, it doesn't matter who they are, always. And I don't think I've ever abused that. I've always tried to do that, because we're all the same. Just we sometimes have different opportunities and different outputs. But I love people. I love talking to people. The one thing I have learned, which is probably difficult out of this, because it sort of goes the other way, listen. Because if you listen very carefully, it's very often a different message to the one you think you're receiving.
That takes some listening to a couple of times, I think. Yeah, it's a good point.
But the times I've gone back and thought,
what I thought
what
I
did
heard
they
wasn't
actually
what...
say?
Yeah.
I get it now.
Well, the beauty of podcasts, of course, is you can play them fast, you can play them slow,
Yeah.
you can listen to them again and again and again. And often the way I consume them is to go back and forth through different points, which is interesting of itself. If you could go back, time travel, meet 18-year-old Jim, what would you say to him?
I would say, get yourself a cricket coach, because I always wanted to be a cricketer.
Do you think you'd have been a more successful cricket player?
Depends how you measure success, Mike, but I think I could have been a really good cricketer, because I loved it. I played every day, morning, night, every day. My dad, even when we had the pub, put out a pitch. He rolled a pitch for us, the three boys, backstop, wicketkeeper, bowler and batsman, and we did it all the time. And I was quick. I was really quick.
So is there a message in there about pursuing your passions?
Yeah, but I can't. But it seems very ungrateful, because I've had so much fun, and the trappings and whatnot. But you do realise after a while, the trappings don't really mean that much.
They do, until you get to a level where you've covered all your needs.
But they give you choice.
Yeah.
But all the real stuff. I know it sounds a bit twee, but all the real stuff, all the real value, is in the people that you surround yourself with. If you've got really great friends, you've got everything. Yeah. If you've got great family, you've got everything.
And one of the things I consistently hear from successful people as we do this podcast, or just even before life generally, is we all think it's about the destination, but it's really about the journey.
Oh yeah, for sure. It is the journey, yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you.
If you've enjoyed this session, I'd certainly recommend listening to it a few times, because you'll hear things that you didn't realise were in there for you. Do share, do like, do subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Success is a System.